Hi, good morning. My name is Kevin Enderhees, Chief Nursing Officer at Medical City North Hills. Honored to work with these fine folks over here at these two tables, and privileged to be with you this morning. Really wanted to take a second and recognize the great work that Mr. Alvarez is leading. I think it's incredible, an inspiration, especially the piece around the work that's being led around giving individuals a second chance. I know I've been given second chances in my life as well, so I think that's incredible. And just once again, give it up for the work he's leading. Today I've got the honor to introduce our next speaker, Dr. CyLynn Braswell. Dr. CyLynn is an advisor with the Student Analytics in the Frontline Education Organization. Prior to joining Frontline, Dr. Braswell spent close to 20 years championing public education in a variety of roles, both in and out of the school setting. Dr. Braswell's most recent public education employment was with the Northwest ISD as the Executive Director for College, Career Readiness, and Innovation. Dr. Braswell has a lifelong passion to improve the lives of young people through empowerment and training, both during and after high school. Dr. Braswell's service continues today at the state, national, and international level through a variety of boards and committees. Dr. Braswell is committed to building systems that are equitable and accessible while also advocating for the elimination of policies that become barriers to opportunity. Please help me welcome Dr. Cy Braswell.
Well, I need to check. Oh, we've got the clicker right here. Awesome. Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me good? Good. So I am so honored to be here with you today. And because I am a teacher, I'm going to do some interactive stuff. We're going to get up. We're going to dance. We're going to do a lot of that. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. But we are going to talk to each other, and we are going to have a conversation. And first of all, can I just say, Commissioner Alvarez, thank you. Right? Once again, amazing. I really appreciated, as we were having our conversations as speakers, that we are all so much in alignment. When we looked at our presentations, I said, oh, we use some of the same slides. So I promise you won't see too many of the same things, but we are going to be talking about a lot of the same things because, quite frankly, repetition is really important. And we know that. So if you hear it 3 times today, then hopefully it's going to stick, right? So we know about public education. And I have been very fortunate to work in public education for 20 years and just recently left. Whoop. We're going to go the other way. There we go. But we're going to buck up a little bit. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes. I'm going to make sure to leave time for Q&A because there are some people that may want to ask some questions. Hopefully I won't go over. I do tend to get a little passionate about some of this work. So we're going to go through and have a few call to actions. You're going to hear the word call to action often because I do think it's important not just to know, but to do. And a lot of times we know the right thing to do. We don't just necessarily do it. So it's really important for us to leave here today and move into those next steps. We're going to talk about some advocacy, partnerships, understanding how to live locally but compete globally for our young people. And then we're going to just some good next steps and things that you can all do. But before I get started, I do say that I like to do a little interactive. So I'm going to ask for you to actually see the people around you at your table. Hopefully you know most of them, but if you do not, if you have some new friends, I'm not going to ask you to do it full on, like stand up, raise your hands. That's always a little uncomfortable. But I have a couple of questions that I'd like for you to just answer very quickly. First, what your name is, what your current vocation is, and then do you have anybody in your life under the age of 25 that is in your sphere of influence? It's a yes or no. You either deal with people under the age of 25 or you do not. So I'm going to give you a minute, sit around your table. I want you to introduce your name, your vocation, and yes or no, do you deal with anybody under the age of 25? And go. I'm going to give us 30 more seconds to answer these questions. And 10, 5, and come back to me. Yes, I did have to do my teacher moment right there. I do miss being in a classroom, I will say. But I was really happy to hear Commissioner Alvarez mention Tarleton State University. I graduated there 3 times, be teaching there in the spring, so good job. So I'm excited to be back in the classroom actually going into the spring. The reason I ask that question about under the age of 25, those are the folks that we're targeting right now when we look at the workforce, when we look at actually going at young talent. And so when we're thinking about my little conversation that we're going to have today, I need you to engage in a little bit of brain moment. We're going to do some metacognition. That's what we like to use in our brain research conversation. We're going to self-reflect as we talk through some of these things. And we're going to self-reflect on this question. And you can substitute the word your child and your home to just those people under the age of 25. The people in your life under the age of 25, what is their perception of the world of work based on your words, your behaviors, how you talk about work? I grew up in a very interesting home. I had a great childhood. I'm the last of 6 children. I'm the only one. I'm a first-in-family college graduate. You'll learn about my career journey later. We'll go on that journey together. But I had the world of work spoken in my home. My dad is 82 years old. He still works a 60-hour work week, and he believes that his ultimate goal is just to die at work. He just wants to just go out that way. And that's okay. But every day, the world of work was part of my life. So knowing and going to work was something. What do the people in your life think about the world of work when you talk? So as we go through this, we're going to look. I am really struggling with this up and down on the clicker. So, advanced degrees, right? We're going to go through a couple of different patterns here. The first we're going to talk about is professional skills. Then we're going to look at a couple of different things around this call to action that we need to go after. Now, we've heard soft skills. You've probably heard 21st century skills. You've heard a lot of different mentions of these things. We call them professional skills in my previous world, and the reason I speak to professional skills is I'm talking about it as it applies to the world of work. So it is a professional skill. Now, in my previous world, we did not have a good definition. My favorite, they have this thing called a PLC. For those of you who are in education, you've heard this, you understand it. Those of you who are not, and it's another foreign thing, we talk about common language, we will pre-teach some vocabulary. The professional learning community, we're all going to work together. I had 160 teachers, none of whom said that they had anything in common. I'm culinary, I'm manufacturing, I teach architecture. We don't have anything in common. But the one thing that we did have in common were professional skills. So we could anchor around that. For 18 months, we would set out, redefine, change, and look at, I think when Alvarez walked around, he was a lot quieter than I was, these hills. When we would go and look at the professional skills, we had to come up with common language. So we sent 160 teachers, and we had them descend upon Alliance, Texas, and every business and industry that would let us in their door. We went up to UNT, we went out to Wise County, we worked with agriculture, we worked in vet offices, we worked in the culinary, we went and met with higher ed, and we sent the teachers out for the sole purpose of watching people in their industry, just to see the professional skills in action. We came back, we reconvened, we spent days going over and looking and garnering all the data, these 160 people, because they all had their own observations. And we were able to work that down into a list that was manageable. And then we were afforded an opportunity to run a thought exchange with over 200 employers with NTX Plan, put some great stuff at the Region 11 Service Center, and had employers give us about 4,000 comments of feedback and say, these are the skills we need. So we developed the Professional Skills Performance Review. Originally, we set it out to be a rubric so that we could be the ones to tell kids what they were doing well. And that was the wrong way to go. I did not need to judge. I needed the student to be able to tell me what professional skill they thought they were good at and why. What was the evidence that they were good at it? And how are they going to get better at it? So we would build these 4 domains. We went through. From the 4 domains, we started asking some pretty serious questions. So for collaboration, I mean, if you read any of these, how many of you don't want an employee to be able to do this? Be an integral part of the team. Communicate effectively with a variety of tools. Be able to promote an environment of trust. Young people can make these definitions. They can understand them. They're already building their identities. By the way, that starts at 12. True adolescent identity at the age of 12. So if I'm latching on to career education and the first time I experience the world of work is when I'm 18, there are already a set of habits built. So we decided, let's let our students tell us in one-on-one conversations with teachers how they are getting better, how they are reviewing themselves, how did the work that they did in the classroom that day build a professional skill. This is easily replicable. It's something you can build into anything. If we have folks from public ed in here, you know that you can add this in, but how many of our business and industry folks, you do this in a one-on-one in a management situation? It's the same concept. We went through and said, let's look at communication. Are we able to receive constructive feedback? We know how important that is. So we wanted to have these conversations around this and allow our students to engage in that, but also the adults working with the students now started working in their own professional skills and starting to see themselves in their own reflections, because this was an adult tool too. There's reciprocity in teaching. Initiative and self-direction, motivating young people to want to do something. One of my friends, Mark, I love what he says. He said, young people today can do anything if they want to. It's just getting them to want to do something. It's really important, but they have to have a reason and a passion and a purpose. So how do we get them there? How do we have that conversation? We would go on to build this, and then we would also land on professionalism. Now, this is one that I think probably is the sticking point for a lot of folks. And I have my own perceptions about things, and I divulge a story. So my husband and I, we were able to help raise his niece, and she's a teacher now, and I love it. She's third-year teacher, so I'm leaning in and being that mentor, you know, and I called her the other day, and I said, hey, these cute shoes, they're on sale. Don't you want them? They'll be great for work. And she proceeds to laugh at me. I was like, I'm not that old. I think I'm pretty trendy. And she says, no. She says, we don't dress like that. She's in a small town in East Texas. She's like, I dress appropriately, but I wear Air Force Ones to work or my Converse every day. What? You wear blue jeans and Air Force Ones? No, that's not how I dressed when I taught. There's a difference in my expectations. I was putting my expectations on her, but she was dressing appropriately for her work where she's at. The thing I had to teach her always and encourage was be put together. Always look your best, but my best and her best didn't necessarily correspond. We do have generational conversations in places we have to lean in on our perceptions. Once again, that's why this rubric had to be a self-evaluation, not me telling. And then this is where you have the conversation. I always tell people, you don't go to number 7 and be professionally perfect at every one of these skills. I'm not even professionally perfect at most of these skills. I'm still developing to this day. And so to expect our young people to walk out into the world of work and just have it and not have reflected on it and not to coach it up it's unconscionable. We don't expect a baseball player to just know how to throw the ball. We won't talk about the Astros. It was rough last night. Whew. We don't expect that. We coach it. It's the same here. So when we look at professional skills, there are things we can do to embed those. I think they start at the age of 8. 3rd grade, that's when you're building identity. Age of 8, that's when we start to lean in. By 12, adolescent identity is being formed. By 18, folks, it's entrenched. You can still grow and learn, but it's entrenched. Those things, those ideas, the beliefs, the self-talk has already occurred. second thing, call to action, high quality CTE. How many of you ever heard those words? High quality CTE. I'm going to do the teacher, raise your hand. Okay, so high quality CTE. 2018 documents come out. There are 12 pillars for high quality CTE, career and technical education in not just Texas, but across the country. And they have these pillars about what makes great career and technical education. And folks, we have amazing programs here, not just in North Texas, across the state of Texas and across the country, that are working to train young people. But the thing they need the most is a work-based learning experience, because that's the pillar, the top part of the high-quality CTE. I can train all the skills in the classroom, I can teach all the technical learning, but I have to be able to understand that for a young person to go out and do this well, they need access to experiences. And there are not always accesses to experiences. If you sit in business and industry, how often do you see people under the age of 18 in your offices? How often are you mentoring them? How often are they experiencing the world of work where you work? It's really important, because that experience is what's going to carry them forward. Now, this comes from the state framework that we understood about work-based learning and what's high quality. Once again, I'm a pre-teach vocabulary. You may hear the education side say career prep program. They may use the word practicums, internships, apprenticeships. They're all the same thing. They are work-based learning. They are learning by doing. I'm a former ag teacher. Anybody in here knows the FFA? We learn by doing. That's what this is. Now, we struggled in my previous world to actually simplify the language about these. This book here, if you've never seen Learning for Careers, ever read it, I highly recommend it. It's great. It comes from our folks at Pathways to Prosperity. We understand it's very plain language. It's a simple read. It's an easy read. But the best part is it really does talk about the work-based learning continuum. There are all of these courses that we offer for career and technical education. Some are about awareness, some are about training, some are about preparation, some are just exploration. We want our young people to actually go through these programs and see all these levels. We made career icons to go with them, so that the fact that we have 63 languages spoken in my previous world in that school district, there were 63 different languages. I just needed to be able to teach people go red to blue. So that if we had a language barrier, they could understand, hey, we got to get you to blue so that you can get an experience. In this theory, we want to make sure that we're capitalizing, and this comes from the state TEA documents. We want to make sure that we're capitalizing on classroom learning, the technical skills, because we still believe academics matter. We still need people who can read and write. And then we want to make sure that those employability or professional skills are happening to get this skilled talent pool. Guys, this is the framework for every school district in North Texas and across the state of Texas. They all have career and technical education programs that are working on this theory. Do not discount their value. But if you're one of those people managing it, it's really important to live this. So your programs in your classrooms, they have to offer it. That means partnerships. Youth employment. So Center of Education and Workforce in Georgetown, I like to look at some of their stuff. We don't always agree, but I think this is really valuable for us to understand. If you see those burgundy bars, I think that kind of comes across purple burgundy. If you see those, that's where a recession hits. That span of time. That one on the far right, that would be a global pandemic. And we see that drop. Youth employment has not resurged as high as we would like, but so is employment for 25 to 54. The skills that the workforce that we needed prior to the pandemic and the workforce we need now, there are changes, and we understand that. Texas has really defined workforce work-based learning. They have laid down a foundation and given it a definition. However, we have not implemented it well. We have it in pockets, in places. We have an apprenticeship program here. We've got a CTE program here. We've got all of these different pieces, but we have not come together. More importantly, I'm going to speak to North Texas. Let's come together as a region and be competitive in workforce and actually have some common ground. That tends to not happen. We got a lot of people doing a lot of things, but we really haven't gotten congruence. Now, this slide's ugly. I'll just go ahead and say, my goal is to actually blow out the things that are on the right-hand side. Industry-based credentials. We're gonna say in the state of Texas, a student needs to complete those 4, that red to blue. They needed to complete 3 or more courses for 4 or more credits, which means it's in a combined program of study. All those words are what's being thrown at our school districts. And at the end, we want them to have an IBC, an industry-based credential. So if I'm looking at architecture and construction career clusters, these are the state-approved industry-based credentials right now for this program of study. When I say state-approved, these are the only ones that the district can offer for that program of study if the kid took 3 courses for 4 or more credits, locked themselves in at the age of 14, complete the IBC, then the district gets a check mark. That is unfair. And how many times in a construction or architecture, we need something beyond that list? I think, quite frankly, everybody needs to be an expert in Microsoft Excel. I don't care what job you're in. I have to teach the ribbons to people all the time. Let's go to the top, find data. You know, this is where we need to really look at policy and legislation and where it starts putting people into a box. We also have a new change. Thank you to our House bills that have passed. We are appreciative of so many things where career and technical education has taken it to the forefront. But sometimes unintentional consequences come about. Now, I don't mean to get too passionate, but I promised them I wouldn't have too much of an altar call today. But when we have these level courses, we're saying a level 1, an entry-level course, a level 2, a level 3, level 4, they also come with a different level of funding. So in my district, if I have a level 1 course, I get paid $1, one certain amount, $1.27. If I have a level 3 or 4 course, I get $1.48. It's a different funding model. And then I got to keep up with it. I've got to figure out if the kid completed it. There's just a lot to that. It becomes so complex and cumbersome for a lot of people. It is expensive to offer this program. If I wanted to offer an architecture construction program and do it well, it's not cheap. And I need the funding from the state for sure to do it. But I've got to play the game to get it just right. You have to offer the right kind of courses to make it just enough money, because I'm going to show you here in a minute, you got to pay the salaries first. This is our region. Here's the commuter pattern for the 16 contiguous counties that are here in north central Texas. This is updated every 2 years. So this is the most recent update. My friends at Interlink were able to send this over to me. And when we look at this commuter pattern, we're seeing, folks that live in Tarrant County, 1% of them commute to Denton County. But you've got 17% that are moving over to Dallas County in their commute pattern. But if you go all the way out, let's look west and see how far. Do you see the orange line that's Palo Pinto County? And you see that 9%? You've got 9% of the residents in Palo Pinto County that commute 2 counties just to get to the job. Why does this matter? In 2019, I put a study together that said, hey, I want to know in these 16 counties, what school districts do we have? What career and technical education programs of study do they offer based on what they filed with the state? And how well does it align with the local labor market in these 16 counties? So here's where I landed. In 2019, and I used it prior to the pandemic, I went ahead and stopped there, and so we're not going to get into 2020 just yet. We saw that the top 15 programs of study as far as programs offered, that's the ones there in the programs offered column. The one on the level annual openings is what I used as our top annual openings and top average employment. These are the top 15 based on that labor market index data that is provided to career and technical educators in your area. And I only used what was provided to them because that is where the lane that they're sitting in. Unless you're telling them that they need to offer these opportunities, this is the list that they're stuck with. And these were the top 15. Now, When we look at the actual regional program of study research, this is where we start to get this moment of alignment conversations. And I ran some special regression analysis and did all the beautiful things, but I think the numbers speak pretty plainly. That first one is the #1 program of study offered, and I'm not saying get rid of your ag science program. Y'all, as an ag teacher, had an ag science program. It got kids excited about any type of healthcare, biomedical sciences, you name it, because it's all taught in that ag science, animal science pathway. But to just say animal science, there's not very many openings for vets. Those are pretty historical. When you own a vet clinic, you're not moving out of that a lot. When we look at those high wage, high demand, see, that's the thing, it has to be a high wage, high demand job. So it can't be a vet tech. It has to be in that high wage, high demand. So this is where, once again, the school district starts to get where they have to narrow their focus. So we had some alignment, but that was the #1 program offered. 113 of them out of the 186 school district offered animal science. And then as we start to move down, you see certain things like there's 12,000 openings in accounting and financial services, but only 67 school districts that actually offer a full program of study in accounting and financial services. Now, this is pre-2019. I'm very hopeful that we've seen some changes in the last 2 years and people becoming more aligned. But there's no guarantee. And that's where we have to work together. When I start to dig in deeper, this is the one that hurts me. I go into renewable energy and I see 2,957 openings in 2019 was the annual openings. The estimated employment for 2026 in renewable energy was over 27,000. We have 7 programs of study in those 16 counties for renewable energy. Why? Staff is hard to find to teach it. They have to have a certain level of qualifications. It's difficult to get a partnership. It's hard for us to be able to afford the facilities or the equipment needed to be able to train in renewable energy. So while you in renewable energy may want us to train more people, we're sitting here at a deficit. It's really difficult to do. And that's where the funding comes in. Most people are like, well, the federal government has funding. It's called Perkins funding, and we get this federal dollar that comes to us, and that's wonderful. Perkins funding, our federal funding, is a smidgen. It was less than 1% of my annual $20 million budget. 1% of a $20 million budget was Perkins funding for me. And it didn't pay a single salary. But that big bar in the middle, that payroll spending, my state funding is what I had to use. So see, the state provides you with a level of funding, 55% of it must go to direct cost. I had to pay 80%. 80% of my 55% I got had to go to pay for the teacher first, because I had to fund that. I had to fund that out of that program. Then we could buy equipment. And then if we had the facility or we didn't have the facility. There's some amazing bond projects that you've seen going around here. People trying to invest in facilities. We just heard about UNT getting a facility because training is difficult and sometimes you've got to have the right buildings to do it. When we talk about all of these pieces, it leads to A through F accountability. How many in this room have heard of A through F accountability? You're rating your schools, A through F. Are they a grade A school? All of that I just showed you around career and technical education, industry-based credentials is now going into the A through F accountability. So when we look at industry-based credentials and a student completing a program of study, we're now going to say that we're going to rate a school on how well a 14-year-old chose a 4-year path, completed it, got the credential we said they needed to have, and maybe didn't even give them experiences. We're going to auto-code these students. We're going to make it so much easier. So I was part of a task force with TEA. We go through and they say, we want program completers. So the bottom line up front is completion matters, which means 3 or more courses for 4 or more credits in that program of study, which is hard sometimes just to find. I can't tell you how hard it was for me to find a licensed cosmetologist to come in and become my cosmetology instructor, or someone who had to have 2 years of healthcare experience, be a licensed healthcare professional to come in and teach healthcare in my classes. Those are requirements for career and technical education. And so it was very difficult to find those folks to work with us and to get students into these programs. Then we have this other piece. Commissioner Alvarez talked about counselors and how lucky we are, and we are, but our counselors on average are having 450 to 1. One counselor, 450 students. That's really hard to get to career advising. And there's a lot of misconceptions and preconceptions. We talked about this 4-year degree, technical 2-year, military 4-year. Those are all things we're after. We need to understand that our students can get a post-secondary experience without going to a 4-year degree. Well, this starts at the counseling level. We have to all be on the same page for that. And so if it's disjointed, and this is part of the TEA framework on effective advising, if it's disjointed, we need some way to thread that needle. In my previous world, we brought in college and career facilitators. We added a position who said, I'm going to pull in every kid by the time they're a junior, and we will have had multiple conversations so that we can start to connect these cogs, make them work a little bit better. The credentialing path, the conversation, one of the things I loved is to say, are you skilled, credentialed, and ready? I hold these skills, I have these credentials, I'm ready to do this work. When we look at the skills that need to be happening, and not just the professional skills, but the technical skills, and we have these really strong programs that are doing that, getting to a credentialing path is important. It's just, we shouldn't be locked into what they call the IBC list. Just for another vocabulary, that's the industry-based certifications. The IBC list, if you hear that, if you have people talking about it around you that they say that's the connection, it's not. It's not enough. We want to make sure that we credential stack. You know, we were talking about that bonus program. If our students leave high school with some type of credentials and a bullet on their resume and they can speak to doing something, they are closer to that family supporting livable wage. And if we want to stop the rate of recidivism, if we want to shut down how many justice-involved youth we have, we've got to give them purpose. They need to have something, they need to win. And to get a good credential is important, and early and often matters. Pell Grants. So, talked a little bit about Pell Grants, but I don't know, how many of you, I'm not going to do the hand thing again, but I don't want to, when we talk about Pell Grants, most people have heard Pell Grants in the form of college education. If a student of poverty is not enrolled in an institution of higher ed, they are not qualified for a Pell Grant. Let that sink in. If I am a student of poverty and I have no access to a Pell Grant, unless I enter an institution of higher education, I can't proceed. Why does that matter? Because there are high-quality certification programs out there that can get me to a family-supporting livable wage and that do not require a 4-year degree. They don't even require a 2-year degree. We just need a credential. But there's no access for a student of poverty. And when we look at these national statistics and we see someone with a certificate, these are people actually involved in the labor force. Every single one of the categories. If they have a credential, they are almost twice as likely to enter the workforce. And if we want people to be, if we don't want to have to constantly worry about opportunity populations, justice-involved youth, then we need to get them in the workforce earlier and more often. And that means opening your doors and giving them access. Many people don't know that when we work with our healthcare providers in my former world, we provided insurance for our students. We were all about taking on some of that liability, making sure that they get in there at 17. We weren't asking them to go in and be an RN, but to go and learn and work with an RN, that's a first step. Having access to these opportunities, especially ones that possibly are paid, game changer. I tried to be the #1 employer in my school district. Every time I turned around in the department, if I had something that needed to be done and we could hire a student to do it, we did it. I took 20% of that budget that we started with, and I said I'm going to get as many of those dollars to the kid. Especially a student of poverty who has no transportation can now be employed 20 hours a week in my office doing marketing. Why not? I was paying them a decent wage. They were adding to the income at home. Why not? And they also got bullets on their resume, and they had a way to talk about their skills when they went to that next job. When we look at credentials and certifications, we want to keep pushing those things and those opportunities because we know that those matter. But I need employers to say that it matters. We don't hear enough. We hear mainly the 4-year degree. And that's what our counselors are hearing, and so it's really hard for them to get on board when we say credentials and certifications. This is a system that I believe in. We talk about the technical careers, the professional careers. We talk about all of these different pieces and this career tree journey. And you can get an entry-level career when you grow through most of the programs in this world. So this is a career tree that's focused on our manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. Here's some careers that are entry-level careers if a student finishes a high school program. This is actually a career tree used in Mideast. I just pulled a sample down. And then with a little bit more education or training or another credential, here's some actual technical careers you can get into. And with a little bit more training, here are the professional careers you have access to. But nowhere on the career tree is it indicative of how much money you'll make. Nowhere. More education does not equal more money always. I promise. I have a doctorate degree. I can talk about that. So at the end of the day, when we look at this and we say, how can we get our young people excited? I like to focus on the root system, professional skills, your passion, your academics, and experiences. The experiences was the hardest part for us to fulfill. I am really going to get better at this. So how do we ensure our students make it to a family-supporting livable wage? They need a career destination, education, training, skills, and experiences. If you walk away with nothing today, those 5 things are those people I asked you about in your life that are under the age of 25. Please encourage this. I beg of you. So the call to action. You've had a little bit of time to think about your words. Has anybody reflected on the young people in your life and what they think about the world of work based on your vision? I was flying by the seat of my pants yesterday and I was having a conversation about this presentation with the lady who makes sure that my sparkles are covered up often. And I'm from East Texas. We're going to be vain till the day we die. That's just how it is. And so I'm talking to her about the world of work. And she tells me, oh my gosh, I've got to stop saying that to my girls. I was like, what are you saying? She said, I tell them all the time how tired I am. She goes, when I come home, I don't tell them how much I love my clients and how fulfilling this job is. I tell them how tired I am. She goes, that's how I talk about work. And I said, so now your children are perceiving work equals tired. Our words matter. I hope you'll not only ask this of yourself, but I hope you'll ask this of your peers. Ask them how they talk about the world of work to the young people in their lives. These are some young people I know. They loved their program in high school, and they became ambassadors about it, and they wanted to sell it, and they wanted to talk about it. And I'm just going to call out this ambassador program right here. My folks at Hillwood, I'm going to say thank you, because this ambassador program conversation led to an additional ambassador program conversation where young people are learning how to network and meet professionals and talk about their programs and why they love what they do. Hillwood took that on. They said, yes, we will help. We will make sure that young people have access to a network. More people need to do that. These young people love what they're going to go do. And they know that their journey is not linear, because we've had the conversation. See, my career journey, for sure not linear. I had no desire, absolutely no desire to ever be a teacher. That was not even in my conversation. Once again, told you about the folks to the left. Amazing mother, pregnant teen at the age of 16, denied an education, was told you might infect the others in the 60s, so you need to go home, Terry, and get a GED. 7th generation farmer, didn't have access to a college education, didn't have any money, had 2 shirts. He did not have opportunity nor encouragement, even though he was very smart. Phillips 66 would be his college for life. He would go all over the world, and he would have a mentor who was a geophysicist who would teach him how to blow things up. He loved that. But he would also learn about water and hydrology. And although he stands before you as a person who has denied, I don't want to hurt any Aggies' feelings, and he was offered a degree at A&M. He was like, absolutely not. Wouldn't take it. Wouldn't even take it. I was like, it's free, Dad, you should take this. No. He worked with engineers, and he's been in water utilities for over 45 years. I know more things about water meters than most people want to know about. But his world would change because of his opportunity at Phillips 66, and then he would strike out and they would become small business owners. These 2 people have worked together every day for 44 years and raised over 10 children. They're pretty awesome. Gotta love them. I get a little teared up about that. But, yeah, they're pretty awesome. But my career journey would have me go to La Pointer High School, where we had 1 hallway, 7th through 12th grade, no CTE programs, and very little opportunity. And a counselor who told me, Trinity Valley Community College, that's an opportunity for you. I think that's the best you can probably do. Got it. But because of the Houston Livestock Show, my mom would have a network. And that network would include the dean of the College of Ag, who would tell my mother she needs to go to Tarleton. We're going to make her an ag teacher. Y'all, I didn't want to go to any of that. I didn't want to do that. But I listened, and the opportunity came for me. First and family college graduate, I have no idea what to do as a registrar. I walked up to the registrar, I don't even know what to do. How do I get a dorm? I got the last dorms. It was 106 degrees the day I moved in, August 26, 1996. And my dad looked at me and said, absolutely not, you're not living here. There's no air conditioning. I was like, Dad, I didn't know how to select a dorm. I just got the one with the best closet. I thought I had my priorities right. I learned a lot about box fans and drafts. I can just tell you that. I didn't live there but a year. Got out. But I would go on to Tarleton State University. I would meet some amazing people, some amazing professors. They would take me under their wing, and they would start to mentor me. I also was a little bit of an entrepreneur. So I decided that I needed to do things in my idle time. I also needed to make a little bit of money. So I worked at the dairy sale barn, where I drew blood on the dairy cows before they got shipped over and did their bangs certification before we shipped them across state lines. I worked at the radio station, did station identification. You know, when they say pause 10 seconds for station identification, that was me, you know. I would go through, and I won't do that voice for you, I promise. I also cleaned frat houses on Thursday. Oh, I know. But y'all, the money was good. And so they wanted that place to look good on the night everybody went out on Thursday night. So I could make a lot of money that day. I figured that out really quick. I would also get convinced that I needed to get my real estate license. Whew, last year I wish I still had that. Man, I'd have made a lot more money. Worked for Century 21. It was fantastic. All of that led me to a moment where I kept, in all of this time, I was volunteering and coaching and helping young people learn about livestock judging. And I would get wrapped back into the public education sector. And I would get put into McKinney ISD when we were deciding to build high school number 2 was opening, McKinney North High School. And then I would stay there through opening McKinney Boyd High School, and they would pour into me training after training after training. Folks, if you don't know, public educators are highly trained. There's a lot of professional learning that happens for our people in public education. All those little buttons you see there, hundreds and thousands of hours between McKinney and Northwest ISD. I stand before you now as an analytics advisor who has a doctorate degree, who is a first and family college graduate, and I couldn't have told you 25 years ago what an analytics advisor did, or if it even existed, right? My career journey wasn't linear. And when we look at that, we need to make sure we understand our career journeys and we share it with those young people. I share this all the time. I didn't start here, I had to work here. So what can you do? Here's your call to action. Mind your words first. Mind your words. Think about your words. Encourage experiences, and I mean in the places of your work. You know, I asked you what your vocation was to begin with. Your name and your vocation. Where you live and work, do you encourage young people to get experiences. That's important. And then help young people establish their network. I sat at a table one day and I was working with a colleague, and she was like, oh yes, I'm so excited. You know, Jeff, he's going off to college. But I went ahead and introduced him to my friend who's at Goldman Sachs. And that was an awesome conversation. But my first thought was, how many people, young people of poverty, don't have somebody to say, I'm going to introduce you to somebody at Goldman Sachs? Their network is the community in which they live. Oop. Once again, this clicker. And then share your career path story. I'm asking you to share it. Think about it and tell it to other people. So we can do partnerships. My first column there is for educators in this room. Know your local labor market and employers. Know the people and get to working with them. Ask employers to serve on advisory boards. That is a requirement. You must do it. Advocacy. We need to make sure that this A through F accountability, if you get to weigh in on any conversation, do not say that the only way for A through F accountability for career and technical education should be wrapped up in an industry-based credential. Stop it. Make people listen, because it's not good. And if you need to, call me. I'll help you say it. Complete the labor market surveys. If you get something from Interlink, guys, Interlink's been 35 years working with the 16 counties in North Central Texas. They just celebrated their 35th year. They exist to put education and workforce and higher education all in the same room. If they send you a labor market survey, please fill it out and tell them if a credential is worthwhile or not. Because your CTE directors are using that as part of programming to put it in the right place. So if you're asked to fill out a labor market survey, please do so. And then let's have joint programs. It is really hard sometimes to get P-TECH. I worked really hard to get an ECHS. Thank you, Tarrant County College. You're amazing. We appreciate you and what you do. P-TECHs, ECHS, T-STEMs. If you see those, somebody approaches you, says, be a partner with me, do it. This was my mantra. I wanted to build a work-ready community who can live locally but compete globally. Every one of the students who needs a competitive advantage, every one of them. How do we do that? Embed those professional skills early and often. Once again, that adolescent ID starts forming. So let's put it in our curriculum. Let's put it in our curriculum at school districts. But also, if you answered that question earlier today that you said, I do not have anybody in my sphere of influence that's under the age of 25, please consider becoming a mentor. Step out. People need to hear from you. They need you to guide them through this world of work. Once again, they can't throw the ball well unless we teach them how to. And then find a way to say yes to each other. I'm going to leave you with this. Reflect on your journey, share your journey, and encourage young people to take the journey. The world of work is great. Our young people are amazing. We just have to get them closer to each other. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I don't know that we have time for questions because I went a little long. Yeah, he's like, you're done. Thank you.
Let's hear it again for Dr. Braswell and Julian Alvarez. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. Hi, everybody. My name is Cameron Cushman. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Innovation Ecosystems at the UNT Health Science Center at Fort Worth. We just call it HSC. I represent the HSC Next team, so we're trying to build and develop what's next. We have a short break right now, so please be back in your seats at 10:15, but I'm going to give you a challenge. Go meet. I have a couple of Techstars Accelerator founders with me, one from Canada, one from San Francisco. Come say hi and welcome them. And also, shameless plug, December 6th, they're going to have a demo day where you're going to get to see all 10 of these companies that are coming literally from around the world to Fort Worth to build companies in physical health. So December 6th is the demo day. Come meet Alex and Dave as well on your break. Please be back in your seats by 10:15. Thanks so much for being here, everybody.